Grendel. This is the frame who commonly associated itself with this infamous assume in the hell myth called Nourish, but that's not what I am focusing on today. I know some of you might be asking, Stick, why are you making a video about Grendel today? Aren't you a Rhino main who had over 90% playtime of him? Why do you play Grendel for all of a sudden? Someone convinced me to, you know. Admittedly, I sort of want to ride the hype of Grendel dropping a new skin, but that's just one part of the story. I have reasons to be here. To keep you up with what's Grendel really about, here's a quick and simple explanation of Grendel's kit. Starting with his passive, it's basically plus 250 armor for each enemy in Tami, totaling to 1250 armor. His first ability, Feast, is a button that allows Grendel to swallow his enemy up to 5. Two of his abilities requires at least an enemy in Tami to be pressed, and it also serves as the only method of stacking his passive. Speaking of that, its augment Gorman allows you to change the energy cost from energy to health, while gaining additional 150 armor for each enemy in Tami, aka 2000 armor in total. Now, his second ability, the very infamous Nourish. I remember some Warframe YouTuber is serious enough to tell me that Nourish is the weakest on Grendel. The amount of substance you need to hump to come to this conclusion has to be out of this world. Like, are we for real? Yes, it is undeniable that unlike others, Grendel needs at least an enemy in his tummy to cast this ability, but this ability is Grendel's main source of instant mass healing where others don't have. A base 1k healing that can scale with strength is not something you can scoff at, because this is one of the reasons that Grendel is easily one of the best arcane persistence users known in this game, sitting comfortably at 4th, below Inaros, Nidus and Oraxia. I would even argue that Grendel can easily be top 3 due to the fact that he has a method of status immunity via hardy nourishment on top of huge health pool and many healing, but that's up to personal preference. Also, the viral pulse for Grendel's Nourish is easily one of the most overlooked part of Nourish. Others' Nourish applies 1 viral, which is definitely nice, but look at what Grendel's Nourish is capable of. 10 viral on each pulse. Yeah guys, Grendel is the weakest Nourish user, my ass. Not to mention that the viral percentage and energy multiplier is also weaker on others. So, who has the inferior version then? Sorry for going off a tangent, I had to get this out of my chest. Anyways, his third ability, Pulverize. This is the bunny ball mode of Grendel, and in this state, you are free to cast any of Grendel's ability and gets to enjoy the style that makes Grendel quite fun to play with. Its augment, Catapult, allows you to cosplay Gauss or any other 3D frames, though it is not very practical in your usual missions. Lastly, Grendel's most essential ability and the reason why you pick up Grendel, Regurgitate. You spit out an enemy, dealing 2000 base toxin damage plus 10% of the spat enemy's current health, with a guaranteed toxin proc. While all of this looks quite nice, the augment Gastro is easily the reason why this video is made in the first place. You can now bounce the enemies you spat up to 3 times. Each bounce applies 2 gas proc and deals only 25% of the damage after each bounce, going as low as 6.25% on the final bounce, and applies a toxin proc instead of the intended 2 gas procs. This also leaves a lingering feel akin to Nightwatch Napalm, with a guaranteed gas proc on each damage ticks. So that's Grendel's kit for you. Obviously, I'm not the most capable person on Grendel because I'm simply not a Grendel main, nor I have spent enough time with this rank to be considered proficient. But that won't stop the reason why I am asking you to stop using Raw on Grendel. Just like how Nourish brings counter synergy to Rhino due to the viral percentage lowering the DOT proc count, limiting the potential of Raw, and the viral wave triggering at the wrong time ruins the 3-second Iron Skin period just to source an energy generation method plus additional damage increase. Raw also brought many counter synergy to Grendel himself because he also wants to deal more damage. Starting with the 2% enemy HP drain per second in his tummy. Because this 2% is seen as ability damage, this means that it is unfortunately buffed by Raw, causing enemies in tummy to actually die faster. But Stick, how is this important? Enemy die faster equals good, no? Let me move in the scaling graph of Regurgitate for a bit. See the enemy current HP scaling? Because Raw causes the enemy's HP to drop faster, it actually counters Grendel's own scaling, which already indicate that you are not getting the full bang for the bucks you pay, aka no pulverize. This also causes you to cast Feast more often as enemy in Tami die faster, which means that your passive bonus runs out faster, and just like I said, you lose out a substantial amount of scaling potential just to have Raw pay it all back and allow you to deal more damage. Not to mention that Nourish also deals damage to an enemy in Tami on cast, as shown. With Raw, this HP percentage damage is higher, which means that said enemy will basically contribute nothing to Regurgitate's scaling. Because of Raw, it forces you to spew out enemies faster because the longer you keep them in your Tami, the more harm Raw will bring to Regurgitate's scaling when compared to a Grendel without Raw. Nourish also hits an enemy harder with Raw active, forcing you to always at an disadvantage because you are doomed to have one enemy that contributes even less to the scaling. And when the level goes high enough where persistence is perma 500 damage per second gating, the amount of Nourish cast starts to ramp up, and the existence of Raw will make this a much tougher situation just because you wanna heal. The harm that Raw brings to Grendel starts to snowball the higher level you go, and that's even before considering in the problem that Rhino also suffers from having Nourish with Raw elemental weighting. You see why I simply don't recommend Raw on Grendel now. Even if you insist on putting Raw over Polarize, I still won't say it is the best out of providing a strong boost to Grendel's output. Such power proves itself to be strong, brings none of the downsides by utilizing Raw, yet death of his enemy still ensues. Who will live to tell the tale when the world is sickened by its touch? Welcome back to yet another session where Amulistic glazes Sickening Pulse because it is just that good and underrated of its assumed choice, but I digress. Sickening Pulse duplicates a status effect that isn't Hit, Toxin, Slash by 10, while disregarding the elemental mod that comes from both Toxin, Electricity, and Gas if you are utilizing Lavos with Valence Formation or Vesper 77's Leaded Gas Augment. For Grendel, because of Gastro, you gain access to a swift method of applying strong gas proc and no innate element buff attached. You are eligible to the full effect of Sickening Pulse, aka insta max 10 gas proc that can be understood as 10 times damage increase. Even at 300 strength, Raw only gives Grendel a 3.61 times increase in DOT damage, and that is with the many downsides aforementioned. Not only Sickening Pulse allows Grendel to have access to a 10 times damage increase in DOT, it also has none of the downsides that Raw carries, albeit you need to cast it often. Even if you choose to not utilize Gastro in any way because you may think that Sickening Pulse is only a good choice due to gas, but it is also good with Toxin proc that has no innate elemental mod, aka Toxin proc from abilities. I once made a video about the hidden synergy of Sickening Pulse with increases from Emerald Shards, precisely the buff where it increases the status damage of all Toxin DOTs, additive to Elementalist mods. To sum it up for you, Sickening Pulse not only duplicates the DOT that is buffed by the shards fully, the duplicated DOT applies the increase from the shards again, effectively double dip with any status damage increase. To visualize how much damage you just gained, here's some math. Assume that you have 4 Tauforge Emerald Shards. This will net you plus 180% status damage increase to all Toxin DOTs, or 2.8 times. Assume that the Toxin DOT damage is 100k. Normally, Sickening Pulse will also duplicate a tick that does 100k damage, totaling to 200k. With the shards, you are looking at 280k. Normally, it should be 560k, but due to the synergy, the duplication is now 784k instead of 280k, effectively a 3.8 times increase or an additional total output increase of 1.9 times. When Grendel had to mod for 316 strength with Raw just to match the damage increase, it says a lot about the viability of this subsume, you know. That's why Sickening Pulse Grendel is a far more superior choice than the usual choices like Raw. Not only it brings no negative effects to Grendel, The synergy it allows Grendel to maximize his damage output is far more viable than what Raw gives. If you aim to get the most out of Grendel, Sickening Pulse is absolutely a must to try, simply because of how much it synergizes with Gastro or even just Regurgitate itself. So, would you give this a try? Yes, Sickening Pulse requires more button presses than Raw, but trust me, the effort spent for the payout is definitely worth the button presses. Even if you don't like it, you know, Base Kit Grendel is a very viable choice as well. That's all for today. See you all next time. Goodbye.